So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Candace on her show yesterday, where she talks about the Tucker Carlson interview and a couple other things. And then we'll jump over and check out her on Piers Morgan. And just I want to hear what y'all think about it. So please jump into the best live chat on the internet. Let me know what you think about this. Am I going crazy? Am I just being a little bit too harsh? Am I not understanding the deep implications of this? And of course, let me know if I'm missing a point, especially if this is in her 6-part series. I don't know. But I will say this emphatically. I am waiting for her legal response to the lawsuit from the Macrons. Because she's not going to roll up into court and say, here, judge, here's my 6-part series and my 19 videos that I've done on this topic. That's not going to be the case. She is going to have to give a legal response to the legal lawsuit that the Macrons filed against her. So therefore, that's what I want. That's going to be the most salient, to the point points that she has. It's not going to be a bunch of conjecture, not a lot of theories. Shouldn't be, at least. And should not be a whole bunch of, hypothesizing and station breaks. So that's why I'm waiting for her to write a response. So I think a question that a lot of Candace people might want to ask themselves is, why has she not responded yet? And let's go.
About another fashion house, Yves Saint Laurent. You guys know that fashion house, right? I'm feeling really bad for those of you who maybe have an Yves Saint Laurent purse. I certainly had one, or some clothing from them, very expensive clothing, because you're probably going to want to throw it out after I tell you this story, okay? So that fashion house was founded in 1961 by 2 men. Their names, Pierre Berger and, well, of course, Yves Saint Laurent. The 2 of them were actually romantically involved with one another. And for a long time, actually, they were together until 1976, when they ostensibly split amicably. Now, Pierre Berger, I should tell you, one half of that duo, was a major supporter of Emmanuel Macron. Okay. Now, he died back in 2017, but not before declaring publicly his unconditional support to the Macron couple. He declared himself ready to, and this is a direct quote, to find financial support and to help Emmanuel Macron by any means necessary. He went on to say, quote, my support is obviously logical and natural. I've been supporting Emmanuel Macron for a long time. He and his wife are personal friends, end quote. Okay, so we got this Pierre Berger. He's one half of the Yves Saint Laurent duo, and he is a personal friend to Brigitte Macron and her husband. Now, that's certainly an interesting friendship, another interesting friendship for Emmanuel and Brigitte to have, because back in 2012, there was a priest in the south of France who alerted the French police about cases of prostitutions of minors at this villa. The villa was called Villa Majorelle, and it was owned by Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Berger. And it was also a villa in which Jack Lang, who is a former socialist minister, was a regular guest. Now, the accusations of what was going on at that villa, I'll tell you, Pierre Berger refuted them. But he said something rather ambiguous about the accusations. A few months before his death, he said this, quote, back then, morals were freer than they are today, especially in Morocco. Sexuality was unbridled, and we paid less attention to it. When they say that I was having orgies in Marrakesh with Jack Lang and little boys, I wouldn't even have wanted to, because I don't like little boys. Okay? He says little boys. I want you to hang on to that. Right before he died, he says this. Okay. Fast forward, or actually it happened at the same time, Fabrice Thomas, going to introduce you guys to this man named Fabrice Thomas, who would beg to differ kind of about what Pierre Berger was involved in Morocco. Now, Fabrice Thomas, I should tell you, he definitely knows Pierre Berger because he worked for him from 1984 until 1992. He was his sex slave and his chauffeur at time to him and Yves Saint Laurent. He took over for his father. I'm speaking now of Thomas's father, was also a chauffeur and also worked for this couple. And I should mention now that he and his father were incestuous. because that just has to happen. Fabrice Thomas and his father, his own father, they both worked for the couple, the fashion duo. The two of them were incestuous.
Okay, so I'm going to just stop for a second. I have to admit, I'm watching this for the first time in 4K with y'all. You know what I'm starting to feel about Candace? All right, when you go to the grocery store, your local supermarket, whatever like that, you get your various and sundry groceries on the various aisles, and you go to checkout. Hopefully you go to the regular checkout, not that self-checkout foolishness, right? So when you go there and you're kind of waiting in line, and you look over to your left, there's magazines. You look over to your right, there's some other magazines like that. And one of those magazines kind of captures your attention because it has some kind of shenanigans on it, some poorly photoshopped image of a boy that looks like a bat, or aliens coming down on pyramids and such like that. The National Enquirer. Candace at this point is starting to give me National Enquirer vibes. What in the name does this issue have to do with whether or not Candace's claim of Brigitte Macron being a man cosplaying as a woman is right? It sounds gross with all this she's saying about these various and sundry relationships between these people, but none of those things point to, therefore, Brigitte Macron is a man cosplaying as a woman. It's just like some National Enquirer. I can't think of that other one that was during that same time. It doesn't even, ma'am, what are you doing? What are you actually doing? We got a few minutes left in this, and I want to get done with this, so let's go.
He submitted this in his book. Anyways, back to what Fabrice Thomas alleges about the fashion duo, because obviously when it comes to Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte, always somewhere in the story, there has to be this element of incest and pedophilia. I don't know why that is. Anyways, aside from having relations with his own father, Fabrice Thomas also, as I mentioned, had relations with Pierre Berger and Yves Saint Laurent. He says that he was their sex slave. And because I know that you are definitely not going to believe me, because why would you believe me? There's just so much pedophilia and incest in all these stories. Here is a spread in Vanity Fair: Sex, Lies, and Passions. I was Yves Saint Laurent's lover. They sat down with him in 2013. Again, this is before Pierre Berger passed away. It's not like he disputed these allegations. And he sat down and gave this exclusive interview about his affair with Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Berger. And in the end, Fabrice would actually go on to write a book. The book is entitled Saint Laurent and Me, An Intimate Story. In this book, he recounts how he first started with the affairs with Pierre Berger. And then Pierre Berger said, oh, you should also inspire Saint Laurent with more demented affairs. And in the book, he goes on to describe that they had these quote unquote fine parties that would have pleased the Marquis de Sade. And he details in that book how he would alternate between pleasing Yves Saint Laurent, who had a masochistic passion, and Pierre Berger, who was more sadistic. Anyways, in a later interview that he did with journalist Jacques Themé was working on this book about, just pedophilia in France in general, how it's like a pedocriminal network that's controlling France. And he recounted to him the real reasons that the co-founders had a falling out. And I'm not going to get into the details of that because it is so positively disgusting what they were into sexually, words that I had never even been aware of, far past being sadistic and masochistic. Like they were into just, I don't even know, like potty stuff, like really demented stuff. But the important part is elsewhere, when Fabrice Thomas is speaking to this journalist, he is unequivocal about Pierre Berger's interest in Morocco. He said, and I quote, that Yves Saint Laurent told him over and over again that Pierre Berger was banging kids in Morocco. He was very attracted to prepubescent girls, end quote. Okay, so it wasn't boys, it was girls, at least if you're going to believe his former sex slave. And again, he wrote this book and was giving interviews and about his relationships with this couple while Pierre Berger was alive. So what are we supposed to make from that?
That's a great question.
How does this just keep happening? You guys, make it make sense that we are speaking about the president of France and his lady wife thing, and the people that surround them are just constantly involved in incestuous affairs, and they are going down to Morocco, and he puts the André Gide book on his desk when he takes this presidential portrait. And we know what André Gide was doing down in Morocco, and everyone who considers themselves a friend, okay, maybe not everyone, but way too many people who helped fund him into power and who count themselves among the friends of this powerful couple, just keep getting involved, getting their hands sticky in pedophile scandals, incest scandals, okay? And now they're really going to try to gaslight us to make it seem like nothing is going on. This is crazy. No, it really is just all of my friends. It's not me. What are we even talking about? It's not me. It's just, oh, everyone around us is like this.
Okay, I'm just got to stop for a second. We actually agree with Candace. Well, I do. I've said this is gross, insane, and completely ridiculous. I agree with her. That doesn't mean that Brigitte Macron is a man, though. I do believe that there was some PDF file activities going on. There's a lot of evil, wicked, vile behavior going on. I got you. I agree with you, Candace. That still doesn't mean that Brigitte is a man, though. And therein is the rub. And I think it's interesting. Did you notice when she mentioned Macron and his wife, she said his lady thing? She didn't call him a man this time. I just thought that was interesting. But we'll see when we watch Piers Morgan. It just seems to me like you've gone. I personally believe that she's gone too far. I don't think that this lawsuit is going the way that she anticipated, because I think she thought that she would just be able to say, well, hey, I want discovery. This is just my thought, without actually answering the lawsuit. Because you can't just go in there and say, I want discovery. Well, did you answer the suit, though? Did you say that it was wrong? Did you answer these 22 counts that they made? Did you answer any of that? And I think, in my opinion, this is not going the way that she anticipated. Just my thought. But this is a new theory, by the way, if you've been keeping score. This theory, unless somebody who watched the series, feel free to let me know, is this in her book? I'm not in her book, in her 6-part series? Just wondering. Let's go.
Do you believe that? Do you accept that? What does it make you think about all of the people who are protecting this couple, the media that is protecting this couple? I think today was the first time in the Daily Mail that I saw them give a fair shake on what is happening regarding my lawsuit. Before then, it was just a full-blown public gaslighting, pretending that there was nothing to this story, that Brigitte Macron is the victim. Oh my gosh, could you imagine Brigitte, this poor woman who just fell in love with her student? Yeah, the problem here is Candace discussing this. Think about what that tells us about the world that we live in, about the people that rule over us.
Well, one, they don't rule over me. They don't rule over you unless you're French. But I digress there. And I'm sure you can go ahead in the secret cabal. But Candace, come on up here to the front of the church, Candace. We got to talk about this. You do realize you could call out PDF behavior without insinuating that Macron is a man. And all this other stuff, all that other stuff that you've done, you could call this out. And I think that that's right to do. I agree with you. I think you put your foot in the hornet's nest by insinuating that the woman is a man. Therein is the problem.
And that's not it, you guys. Now is probably a good time to tell you guys that during his presidency, during the first term, Emmanuel Macron's administration worked to have the age of consent lowered from 15 years of age to 13 years of age. Yeah, the age of consent in France is 15 years of age, unless you are an adult that has power over a child. Then it gets bumped up to 18 years of age, being the age of consent, right? So in a teacher-student relationship, traditionally, it's always been that the age of consent is 18, which makes Brigitte's relationship with Emmanuel Macron problematic no matter what, okay?
We agree. We agree. And lowering the age of consent to 13 is some nasty work as well. I still don't mean that Brigitte Macron is a man. And I think Candace is spending a lot of time. And this is why I don't want to watch her series, because there's all of these extra ancillary stuff that isn't tied to the actual point that she's making or attempting to make. And I think a lot of people know that. But, hey, as soon as she responds to the lawsuit, I'm all over it like nobody's business. I will be all over it. I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
And when they did this, when they tried to lower the age of consent to 13 years of age, they did it in a very perverse and manipulative way. They told the public that it was necessary to raise the age of consent with an adult to 13 years to protect children. So they packaged this as, we're protecting kids, so we're going to raise the age of consent to 13. They thought the public wouldn't notice this, that the public would just assume that maybe the age was lower and that they were actually raising it to 13. But it didn't work. The public did not fall for it. The public was understandably outraged at this attempt, this naked attempt to lower the age of consent to 13. And ultimately that measure failed. But I should mention that another aspect did not fail. This brings in Eric Dupont-Moretti, right? The lawyer that's saying, former Minister of Justice, and he was a Minister of Justice at that time, the one that's out there saying, Candace must be funded by Russia, completely untrue. Trying to bring down the French Republic, completely untrue. But while he was a Minister of Justice, he did have some success. He managed to have teachers removed from the category of persons that have authority over children. Okay, so to make that clear, the age of consent is 15 unless the adult has power over the child. Then it's bumped up to 18, right? But Eric Dupont-Moretti, as he was working for Macron as the Minister of Justice, got teachers removed from that definition. So yeah, 15 works if you're a teacher. Why would they do that?
That's nasty work. That's vile, diabolical activity. I'm not in disagreement though, Candace. And again, like I don't see where this, therefore, Brigitte Macron is a man. That's all I'm trying to say. And this is diabolical. And let it be known, let it be said, I agree that this is where she should be parking her cart or hitching her horse. This is where she should be. Calling this foolishness out. Whether Macron is a man or a woman really should be ancillary to the fact that there are real bona fide children being harmed in 4K in 2025. That should be her. That should be the waving the red flags, sounding the alarms, all that. I don't see why. Again, now if she was getting sued because of that, I think most of us would probably be in agreement and stand with her. But I don't see why these two things go together. But maybe she'll explain it.